is living a consistent life with Jesus. I think you know what I'm talking about. I'm going to expound a little bit, okay? See if you can recognize some of these butts. But I have to work more. But my favorite TV show is on. But my kids have practice. But I got to do something. But it's such a beautiful day. But I'm just not in the mood. But I deserve a break today. You see, everything kind of interferes with my life of just living an authentic life for God, okay? And more often than not, it always has something to do with some sort of butt, okay? Even the littlest of butt can distract me. It really can. The littlest butt can make me think, well, I'm not going to pray today. I'm not going to think about it today. I'm not going to deny myself. I'm not going to read the Bible, blah, blah, blah. Whatever God asks me to do, I seem to have a butt for it and get away, okay? And the most horrendously big butt of all time is the butt that gets in the way of me just hanging out with God and reading His Word. It's true. Think about it. All the times you're about to open that, and all of a sudden the big giant butt gets in the way. But, much like one of these. But I got a farm bill, but I'm tired. But the game's over, but I read next Tuesday. But I got to check Facebook. But I don't like Leviticus, but it's too hot here. But I just don't like books. But I don't understand it. But it's boring. But what does that have to do with me in the 21st century? Those are some ugly butts, people. Let's just call them what they are. Ugly. Ugly butts. Okay? And there's a lot more to them, sad but true. Here's a list, although not exhaustive, of some of the most popular butts known to mankind. But I don't have enough money yet. But others will think that I'm a nerd if I carry the Bible. But they won't like me if I talk about Jesus. But I don't know if God will do what I ask. But I just can't get motivated. But I'm afraid. But I don't have all the answers. But a small group is the same as Monday Night Football. But can't I just let my life speak for itself? But I'm not happy. That's not my gift. That's the pastor job. But I don't know how to pray. But I can't believe that. But I don't know where to start. But everybody else is having fun. Butts abound, friend. Butt. Here a butt, there a butt. Everywhere, a butt. Okay? And the most overused butt of all time, but I just don't have enough time. No, oh come on, we have a lot of butts. God has given us a real simple word, okay? If we learn it, and we share it, and we teach it, and we live by it, then see God gets glorified, people benefit, and then we get blessed. That's why we do what we do. That's the why behind the butt, okay? And ultimately, that's the whole point I'm trying to make here, my fellow butt lovers, is if your butt is bigger than your why, your butt's too big. Okay, it's time to, metaphorically speaking, snap into a Slim Jim. Okay, let's slap on some spiritual shape-ups and hit the road a little bit so we can just manage the butts a little bit. That's all we're trying to do. That's what we're talking about. Let's minimize the excuses. Let's shrink the butts. Shrink the butts. Say it with me. Shrink the butts. That's what we need to do. And you and I can do that together. We can conquer this. You and I can do it. We start today, okay? I know we can. Let's just do it. No ifs, ands, or...
That's cute.
Very true. It's all true. What? Well, let's pray. Lord, we know that that's a familiar thing in our lives. We can make all kinds of excuses on why we don't do more for you. Help us, Lord, to readjust our thinking and help us to learn that through this morning's message, Lord. You want to speak to us through your word, and we pray that you'll do that. In Christ's name. Amen. How many would like to take vacations? Well, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
Warm ones.
Huh?
Warm ones.
Warm ones. Well, I leave for Colorado tomorrow to see my daughter. Can't wait to get away for a couple of days. Going on vacation can be a very pleasurable experience. As long as you know where you're going and what to expect when you get there. But not everybody does. Travel agents have told stories about people who misunderstood those things. One agent said this: I had someone ask for an aisle seat on their airplane so that their hair wouldn't get messed up by being near the window. Another said he had a client who called inquiring about a package to Hawaii. After going over all the cost information, she asked, would it be cheaper for me to fly to California and then get a train to Hawaii? Another man called his travel agent and he was furious about a Florida package they had done for him. The agent asked what was wrong with the vacation package in Orlando. And the man responded that he was expecting an ocean view room. Well, the agent tried to explain that wasn't possible. Because when you're in Orlando, it's in the middle of the state. And the man replied, don't lie to me. I looked on the map, and Florida's a very thin state. Now, my point is this. A vacation can be a very pleasurable experience as long as you know where you're going and what to expect when you get there. These folks we're talking about this morning, they didn't. And so they ended up being very frustrated. In our text for this morning, we'll be talking about the book of 1 Peter. 1 Peter 1:1 says, Peter reminds us there that we are strangers in this world. You ever know that? Did you ever know that you're a stranger in this world? That you don't belong here? This is not our home. We were reborn to live somewhere else. And if we don't remember that, we can get very frustrated in this life that we live here on this earth. Jesus told us in John 16:33, in this world, what world? This world. You, what does that mean?
Me.
You, me, will have trouble. Anybody ever have trouble?
Yeah.
And here in 1 Peter 1:6, Peter tells the Christians, he's writing to the same things. He says, for a little while, you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. And so Peter acknowledges the pain, but then he explains why we should rejoice about it. He writes in 1 Peter 1:6 and 7, in this what? Pain. Greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may be proved genuine and may result in praise and glory and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. In other words, even our present difficulties in this life that we live in have value for us. And the reason they have value for us is because we have so much else going for us. Peter says we have this as Christians. First of all, in verse 1, he says that we are the elect, that God has chosen us out of this world to be his people. In verse 2, it says we have been sanctified by the Spirit. In other words, we have been set apart from this world. Also in verse 2, it says we have been saved by being sprinkled with the blood of Jesus Christ. And then in verse 3, it says we have been born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Christ. And then in verse 4, it says we have an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for us. And 6, we are guarded by God's power for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. Now we've got much going for us that it should make us want to stand up, shake a little like we're changed, and no matter what happens or when it happens, we need to move our feet and we need to shake a little bit. Amen? Hope you caught that. Peter's telling them to shake like you've been changed. Walk and run and dance, because you've been given something the rest of the world doesn't have. You need to put a spring in your step, because you've got grace, and you've got peace, and you've got mercy, and you have hope. And the reason we can walk like that is because we don't belong here.
That's right. Amen.
We don't belong here. We've got a citizenship in heaven. You know, back in the Cold War era when the Berlin Wall was up, people were told not to take pictures of the guard posts. But guess what a lot of people did? Yeah, they took pictures. Why on earth would they do that? Because they were idiots. These were communist soldiers that were armed with submachine guns. And at the very least, they could have created an international incident. But people who did that, they didn't care. After all, they were Americans. They were a free people from one of the most powerful nations on the earth. And no communist thug was going to tell them what to do. There was no threat they could make that would rob them of that. And Peter is telling us the same thing. That you and I are Christians. And we are a free people. We are part of the most powerful kingdom on the face of the earth. And nothing that this world can threaten us with can rob us of the blessings of that freedom.
Hallelujah.
And so Peter's telling us, shake like you're changed. Are you changed? Hope so. Because you're a free people. Walk like it. Talk like it. Act like those who have been chosen and sanctified and saved and born again to a living hope. Because them other people, they don't have any hope. Their hope is in themselves. And it don't work like that. Don't let the forces of sin cow you into silence and conformity. You've got something the rest of the world does not have. You've got something to offer that many of your friends don't even have. It's like vacationing in a foreign land. You live right now in one of the richest nations on the earth. And you have the advantages that locals in many foreign lands you might visit do not have. And what are the advantages as Christians do we have? Well, first of all, we've got the power to start our lives all over again, to begin anew. Peter writes in 1 Peter 1:9 that you are receiving the goal of your faith, the salvation of your souls. You see, the goal of Christ living in us is to give us the ability to experience God's forgiveness. The people of this world rarely have the ability to experience forgiveness. They don't have the resources to remake or renew their lives. How many of you ever stayed up until midnight for New Year's Eve? Well, I barely can't make it anymore. But almost every nation on earth, what do? They celebrate the holiday. It doesn't matter if you're on vacation in New York or Tel Aviv or Tokyo or wherever. Everybody everywhere celebrates the New Year. It's a celebration that symbolizes starting their lives all over again. And the tool they use to remake their lives is called what? What do you make on New Year's Eve? Resolutions. They believe the resolutions will change their lives for the better. But do they?
No.
Do they actually change people? Sometimes. But for the most part, no. It's a recognized truth that most people's resolutions never last more than 1 month. They just don't seem to work. Why not? Why don't the resolutions work? Because the success of resolutions depends upon our willpower. And it's our lack of willpower that got us into the messes we want to change. No. 1 Peter 1:3, it tells us that you and I have received a new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ. God tells us our ability to change our lives comes about because God works inside of us. It's a change that doesn't come about because we made a pledge, but because God has made a promise, a living promise, embodied in the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. And the problem with most resolutions is that people believe that their peace of mind will come from something God says won't work. They believe that if they can just be more popular, more successful, more intelligent, have more leisure time, have more possessions, have more money, then they could be truly happy. But it never seems to work. Ecclesiastes says all of those things end up being empty and vain. A preacher by the name of Rick Stacy tells the story of a man he once met. This man was the manager of the House of David greenhouses in St. Joseph, Michigan. He'd been raised by the members of a religious cult as a child, and now he was the manager of one of their businesses. And my friend, he says, knew the religion and the business well, but he didn't know Jesus. And one night at 10 o'clock, he called Rick and asked if Ecclesiastes was true when it said that everything in this world was empty and vain. Because if it is, he might as well just kill himself and be done with life. Rick explained that Solomon had discovered that the accumulation of wealth does not satisfy. That it was like trying to catch the wind. He also told him that Solomon also discovered that it was the whole duty of man is to serve God always. Rick went to his home that night. He had the chance to tell that man about Jesus Christ. And on that same night, about 11:30, he baptized him in a swimming pool. And so we are a free people. We are a people who are blessed with advantages this world does not have. And because our best blessings are in heaven, we have another advantage over the world. Secondly, we don't have to fear death. Did you hear me? We don't have to fear death. 1 Peter 1:4 tells us we have an inheritance that can never perish or spoil or fade, kept in heaven for you. There's a book by a historian named Rodney Stark. He wrote this book called The Triumph of Christianity. It's how the Jesus movement became the world's largest religion. He explained that in ancient Rome, the pagans had two philosophies that were dramatically different than Christianity during that time. First of all, the Romans feared death. They believed the grave either led to non-existence or at best a drab existence in a shadowy underworld. And so literally they ran from death and they clung to life for all their worth. And secondly, the Romans viewed mercy and pity as things to be scoffed and looked down upon. And so the philosophers of the day taught that mercy was unreasonable and that the cry of the undeserving for mercy must go unanswered. And then in 165 AD, something happened to change that. A plague had struck the Roman Empire. And now when plagues come to town, those who could, they left town. Those who couldn't get out of town did everything they could to avoid the sick. When their first symptoms appeared, victims were often just thrown out into the streets where the dead and the dying lay in piles. Even doctors, like the famous Roman doctor named Galen, simply ran away. Everybody just seemed to just run away. But the Christians didn't. They cared for their own sick, and for many of the sick of their own neighbors. But why would they do that? First of all, Jesus had taught them that mercy was the highest form of godliness. And secondly, they didn't fear death.
That's right.
They had an inheritance kept in heaven
That's right.
that wouldn't perish, wouldn't spoil, and wouldn't fade. They believed that if they died while caring for the ill, the result for them would be glorious. And so they were able to overcome all of their fears. You see, in those days, the ancient world lacked antibiotics. They lacked other effective medicines. So what could the Christians give to the sick? The very basic things of life. Food, water, compassion. And because the Christians of that day refused to fear death when helping the sick, they not only kept a vast number of fellow Christians and others from dying, but they caught the attention of the rest of the culture. And that literally shook the Roman world because of their self-sacrifice. You see, Christianity isn't just about shaking like we're changed. It's about shaking the world. It's about displaying the love of Jesus in our lives in such a way that the world around us becomes jealous of our love for Him and become hungry and thirsty to have Him in their lives as well. And the third advantage we have is this. This world that we live in is not our home. There's an old spiritual hymn, "The world is not my home, I'm just passing through." When you feel down, that's a good hymn to make you feel better. This world is not my home. How many of us say, "Wow, I'm glad to be home," when you come home from a vacation? But this world is not my home. We're just passing through. I can't feel at home in this world anymore because this world is not my home. It's only a short time here compared to eternity in our true home in heaven. And these verses from 1 Peter 1 are great verses to read to someone who you know might be dying, because they are an exciting declaration of what lies ahead in store for them. Because this world is not their home. They're just passing on through. That's one of the beauties of what God has explained to us. You see, the grave will not hold us. One day we will hear the voice of the angel. We will hear the trumpet call of God. And we will rise from the grave to meet Jesus in the sky. Because we'll be going home. And that's the promise we've had ever since we became Christians. That's the promise that was declared to us. That we will one day rise from the grave and meet Jesus in the sky. This world is not our home. Our present life is like a vacation in that sense. It's a short time for us to be here while we are away from home. And when people get home from their vacations, what do? They share their memories. They show the pictures they've taken to friends and to relatives. They post them on their computers or on Facebook. It's almost like the most important part of their vacation were what? The memories that they hope will last a lifetime. That's why people take pictures. That's why people take videos of their experiences. But when you get home to heaven, what memories will you be able to share? What lives have you touched for Jesus Christ? What people will be in heaven with you? Because maybe you took them to church, or maybe you introduced them to Jesus, or maybe you showed them the love and the mercy that God has given you. You see, folks, it's time. Have you looked at the world around you recently? In the news? Doesn't look too good, does it? You know what Bible prophecy says? it's going to get a lot worse. We need to get the message out there and the people we know. And I hope that you'll make a commitment to do that. More now, because of what's happening, than ever before. That Jesus Christ is the only way to heaven. And we need to share the message that people need to accept Him as their Lord and as their Savior. And when they do, they become part of His family. And they have all of the promises and advantages that I talked about this morning. And so pray about that. I encourage you to do it and make it a part of your daily life. Let us pray. Yes, Lord, we thank you for Peter. He was very blunt about how things are. And many times we don't really want to deal with that. But your words are true. And so help us, Father, to not lean upon this world, that we really are just passing through. Encourage us in the days ahead to share more about our faith, open up opportunities for us to do that, and may Jesus Christ be glorified. In His name we pray. Amen.
Amen.